This is Pete Moore on Halo Talks NYC. I have the pleasure of bringing in a old and dear friend, Brent Leffel, Newport Beach, by way of 15th Street, New York City, my next door neighbor. Welcome to the show, finally.
Thanks for having me, Pete. I was waiting for the invitation.
Excellent. Well, you're in the queue at probably around number 400. So save the best for 400. So you've had a illustrious career, starting off in finance. You want to give your shortened background, and then we're going to talk about what's going on at TRX.
Sure, absolutely. So I worked in banking and private equity for a number of years, and you actually introduced me to this industry back in 2005. At the time, Crunch was an orphan division of Bally, and you came to my old firm with an idea of acquiring it, and we were looking to acquire distressed companies, and we did that, and that transitioned into a couple of years of trying to figure out how to get Crunch on the right track. That culminated. We didn't really do that until I met Mark Mastrove after he had sold 24 Hour, and one of his partners, Jim Rowling, another partner, Mike Feeney, they came in, started operating Crunch for my old firm, did quite well, and then we restructured the business with them, and it really took off. Spent a couple years at my old firm, Angelo Gordon, with them. And then I left and I joined them to start a business called New Evolution Ventures, which was a branded portfolio of health and fitness businesses. And we really span the gamut from company-owned stores, company-owned locations, franchise. We bought and sold, a few businesses, and it was global. We were in 25, 30 countries. My role initially was M&A, business development strategy, and then I got involved in operations over time, under the leadership and mentorship of Mark and Jim. So I had a really good broad experience, and I left back in 2017, spent a little time with the North Castle Partners folks and Barry's Boot Camp. I had invested with them and was on the board, so spent some time as they were starting their international business, and then also spent a bunch of time with some folks that you introduced me to, Kirk and John Galliani. That was, a business that we got involved with at New Evolution Ventures when they had 5 clubs after they had sold Golds with their new business, One Life Fitness, that they grew to about 40 at the time. And then I decided to start my own boutique private equity firm to invest in businesses that I knew. And that led me to TRX, which, we acquired at the end of 2018. And it's been a wild ride. And what's different about us is that we act as both the investor and we get involved in the management and the operations as needed. And I've been, involved in that capacity with TRX really since inception. So it's been, 2 years, and it's been, a lot of great learnings and great fun.
That's awesome. So, your firm and you individually have the benefit of being in private equity, but also spending full-time stints as either the CEO or operating a business. How do you think, and I'll give you my response, but how much do you appreciate the operation, the execution, the team building versus when you were back at Angelo Gordon, and you and I were plugging things into an Excel spreadsheet and just putting growth rates on them?
So I'm playing this role with TRX is, in an operating capacity. My business partner is doing the same thing with a medical aesthetic retail business called UbMe. And, I always like to say that Microsoft Excel is an amazing thing because it can tell you whatever you want. When you and I were back in the day plugging in, growth rates, it's like you're playing a video game. And the other thing that I've learned over the past few years is the thing you can't model is people and culture. And that is the most important thing in these businesses. And I remember, I wish I knew, then what I know now. All my time in private equity, we were focused on the wrong things. We should have been focused on, do you have the right people running the business? Are you supporting them the right way? Are you pushing on the right things? I used to be great at asking a million, detailed, granular questions, which weren't the right questions. And it's more about setting the strategy, make sure that the team's in place and just supporting and letting it move forward. And that's been a key learning that I've had over the course of the past few years, really, seeing it more from the operating side than the other side of it.
And when you start off, I've tinkered around with some very early stage businesses. You and I have looked at doing some much larger deals. What do you think is either your sweet spot or the sweet spot to be able to come in and say, okay, I could fix this, or I could tweak it, or I could change the strategy, where it's not necessarily trying to turn a cruise ship around. So what's like your comfort zone on size of a company to start with?
So I'd say my comfort zone is companies that are running out of cash, because I unfortunately have had a good career of having to. That's what we did at Angelo Gordon, is we bought distressed companies, and I'm pretty. I've unfortunately had a lot of experience with having to navigate through, those types of issues. But look, starting a business and coming up with the initial idea, that's the fun part. And in some respects, there's no part's the easy part. I'd say the main part is from an execution standpoint, what you actually do with the idea and how you build it and take it forward. And a lot of that is making, it's liquidity, it's, making the right bets, and it's getting the right people in place. And I would say, I've been involved really from the beginning to, through later stage companies that are, where there's real structural issues that can't be fixed. And I really think getting involved at the front end before, and really drawing upon a lot of past learnings and experiences to put the right structure, systems, reporting, people in place. That's something that I enjoy a lot more, and and that comes from, frankly, making a lot of mistakes and kind of understanding now what's required when you have to unwind them.
Well, a lot of people have heard me on these podcasts talk about experiences, what you get when you don't get what you want. So hopefully you take all those experiences and turn them into learnings that were almost like flashing yellow lights to know, okay, look, I know what's going to happen if we go down this ramp or cul-de-sac. Switching over and talking about TRX, obviously strong brand, somewhat of a commodity product that turned into a branded suspension system and platform. Definitely a strong cult following, big distributed network of trainers in the space. So when you first took a look at putting capital into the business, what were some of the themes that you thought were interesting from the DNA of the business, and where you could take it? And obviously it takes time to roll out new programs. So we're going to talk about your digital presence after that.
Randy Petrick, the founder, who's just an incredible guy. He and I had become good friends, through the industry during my days at NEB. I had him speak at, we had him speak at one of our, big conferences. I had him, we just had become friends over the year. And I always admired, at URSA, I think I went to URSA with you the first time back in 2005 or 2006. And every year I just always admired how TRX, that was the most fun. Everybody just seemed to love TRX, and it was like the Solomon of the industry. And I always thought to myself, wow, it's a great brand. And, the product, you said it's a commodity product. It's actually not. It's patented, so Randy kind of invented suspension train, this whole, what became suspension training. And the brand had such a good origin story, and he built it brick by brick, and he had huge support from the trainer community. And I always thought, before I had even thought about acquiring TRX, I thought, wow, that business is so much smaller than the brand. Mm-hmm. And so when acquiring it, the business it's pretty small international, and the fitness industry outside of the US is about 4 times as big as in the US. And I spent, a number of years with a backpack traveling all over the place. And I thought, okay, we can, there's a lot of things that we can do to grow the business. And then there's a lot of just like structural things around, the way it was organized from a supply chain standpoint. And the other thing that was kind of amazing was that TRX never spent very limited money on marketing. So it was all grassroots, and, that was part of it in getting involved. Once I got involved, there was just a lot of moving pieces. And, it was, changing we made some additions to and modifications to the team, but also the environment, tariffs, supply chain issues, channel shift. What I underestimated was TRX was very promotional. They were probably on sale 320 of 365 days a year. So just figuring out how to work through that just took some time, but just kind of stuck with it. And then, through COVID, we really changed, quite a bit. We changed our organizational structure to, kind of index behind some of the growth areas. We expanded our distribution, and most importantly, we brought in a CMO, which the company hadn't had, and we, started really kind of figuring out, well, what's our strategy? Because we always had a strategy of creating a platform for all these trainers. We've qualified over 300,000 trainers globally. It's a big number. But that just morphed and evolved. And over the course of the past year, we honed in on, our model, which was creating this digital platform, which was for, trainers and consumers, which we launched about a month ago. And it's really to be of service to the whole, fitness ecosystem, which I think is, it's interesting. I've been on, a few of these and some panels, and everyone asks, well, what's going to happen? Are the gyms going away and at home, or is at home the minute, that the vaccine rolls out, is at home going away and it's the gyms? And I think we're going to live in this unique world where the gyms are always going to be the center of the universe, and there's going to be a hybrid, strategy. This didn't start during COVID. This has been happening for a 10-year period or whatever it is. It just accelerated. I think the most important thing, and you may have the data, is I think that the demand for fitness, I think the actual demand side of the equation increased, over the course of this past year. That's good for everybody. And
Yep.
The consumption patterns we have to figure out. So I know I kind of rambled a little bit there through my journey on TRX, but that's kind of how I got involved, and that's how we have evolved.
Yeah, no, that's a great summary, and we'll talk a little bit more about where TRX fits in the ecosystem of the bricks and mortar. Before I get to that, how do you think about being an investor and being an operator? You technically bought a products company, and now you're somewhat running a digital marketing and technology company that has hardware enabled platforms. So how do you kind of get your mind around, you're a technology guy, you can't help it now because every company is a technology company. So how do you think about that? Because we used to try and stay away from technology as investors in our private equity, historical lens.
Yeah, there's a lot to that question, but the one overarching part of it is, as we built our platform, we had a partner, someone that I've worked with for a long time, that trust, greatly, that's been deeply embedded in the digital tech space in the fitness industry. And then second, we just 2 weeks ago brought on, someone to run that business unit, chief digital officer and general manager. And from my vantage point, I don't understand technology, and frankly, that's not my job, and it's coming up with, being able to kind of conceptualize and, work with those groups and then hire the right people and just try to make sure that we're, well capitalized. And, I hate to use this phrase, but let it rip. I'm just trying to put the right guardrails in place, but just make a bet on the people. And, that to me has been an evolution. When you and I were, kind of spending a lot of time together, we both would have spent a lot of time asking a lot of questions and trying to really understand it. And the best question is, do I have the right person? And does this make sense, the strategy? And let them do their job.
Yeah. A couple of things that you've said without saying is you're there as a CEO or as a private equity, entity to provide support to people in the field. So you're kind of running an inverted org chart. And do you kind of view yourself now more as, I'll handle the trampoline, I'll make sure we don't hit the ground, but I'm here to serve you in the field and put you in the right places? Because I feel like that's a theme that's kind of transcending into how you do business.
It's funny how you describe that. So my former business partner and Mark Mastrove, that's the one thing I've learned. I learned actually over time how much I learned, and that's the one thing I learned is that he always used to say it's an upside down pyramid, and he sits at the bottom, and his job is just to support everyone. And and look, that's hard to do because sometimes, especially when you're working on Wall Street, that's exactly sometimes you just jump in and get it done. But the best thing is just to just to do that and just to provide support. And I always like to, that's a great way of, that's a very evolved way of thinking. And that's how I'm trying to, operate and manage. And, I don't do a great job all the time, but I think that's the only way to do it, or else you can't, otherwise you're just running around in circles.
Yeah. So TRX, you've got TRX Live. I've got my straps. Thank you. I've got my login that I've paid for. Thanks for the comp on that. As you think about what the health clubs and the boutique studios are trying to do digitally and create a hybrid experience, there aren't any TRX studios that they're competing against. You are directly embedded with getting products into the sector to train trainers. So how do you think about becoming embedded in their digital platform, or, is there a new relationship between TRX and a health club that includes, I'm basically certifying your trainers, here's an area of the club that's the TRX area, just kind of like Nordstrom's and Sephora have done for 20 years. So like, here's your area and you manage this area, and you get to benefit from my brand. So how do you think about that? Or let's talk openly about what the future could hold if bricks and mortar groups kind of embrace what you're delivering.
Yeah. So I think this is a good topic to just riff on a little bit, because I think there's a lot of talk about we're going to live in this hybrid world. And then there's a lot of talk about, well, how do you do that? And, I know that you've been a big, advocate, and I completely agree. And the gyms will come back and they will continue to be the power source. And I think that I think that's proving out, the initial, results as we kind of over the past couple months with the rollout of the vaccine. I think this is going to be figured out, and I think it's going to take some time. So I honestly, I think we are going to live in a hybrid world, and I think there's a lot of external factors that are going to play out. This whole work from home that we just don't know, and our strategy is the heart and soul of TRX, the trainers, and also the clubs. That's how TRX was built, and it's to continue to be of service, and to be a support system, for those groups. And so in terms of, how that manifests, I'm not really sure. It's been business as usual. And, we've been, kind of observing what's happening, having a lot of conversations. And we just want to, make sure that, as I said, TRX has been the Solomon of, the industry. We want to continue doing that. We want to, just help everyone continue to be successful.
Well, I think one part that could be really interesting is, as the billing category has consolidated, you really only have 5 big billing software companies. I think you're going to have probably 2 or 3 big video on demand platforms, one of them IntelliVideo, Forte, maybe Uscreen, a couple others. They are going to become repositories of everyone's content that could potentially be shuffled around into other libraries on different white label sites. I mean, I was doing websites back in 2003, and we were trying to do something like this. Now the delivery system's there. So from your standpoint, TRX Live could potentially be the go-to on their site. It could be a channel. It could be something where you have the opportunity to do something that's hybrid, where you actually put your TRX instructors in the club and you say, hey, look, let's do a couple of sessions a week inside, and you can follow me, or you can do my workouts with me on TRX Live, but inside the, garden walls of a club's platform that's already seamlessly integrated. And then Ganelin, maybe you want to jump in here, given your, you ran around the country for a long time selling kettlebells and kettlebell concepts and certifications. So
I did.
What's your thoughts on kind of TRX getting themselves more embedded on the digital side, just as they have on the product side?
Oh yeah, I think it's a no-brainer. I mean, I was proven wrong where I thought, oh, you can't do kettlebells, digitally, and it needs hand-to-hand instruction. And to some extent, that's still absolutely true, because it's a very involved skill. And back when I first met Randy and saw TRX at the trade shows, my thought was exactly the same. Like, are you kidding me? Suspension training, people are going to hurt themselves. They don't even know where their shoulders are. People are generally uncoordinated. This is a hands-on thing for sure. And I think I was wrong on that too. And the move to digital with TRX with great instructors is the next iteration. I mean, maybe there are certain things that couldn't and shouldn't be taught digitally, and I would argue that certain elements of kettlebells and certain elements of suspension training are inclusive in that. But otherwise, it's a great way to get people or trainers' feet wet in either modality for sure.
Yeah, what's so interesting is that I've been training, and this is how we came up with the general thesis for our digital platform. Is at the beginning of COVID, I started training with a couple friends with some trainers that we have in London virtually, and that group's grown. We now have 10 folks. Most are on the West Coast, a couple are on the East Coast. And 6 a.m., our trainers are in London. We started off working out with straps, and then that progressed. We all got kettlebells. And TRX sells kettlebells, which a lot of people don't know. That progression was amazing. And I'd never really used kettlebells, and I thought, my God, these 10 guys, everyone's going to get hurt. Everybody, we've kind of, it's become the integrated into every single workout, and it's really just it's quite amazing. So I think that's proven out, and the other thing is people have figured out how to do that. It goes back to something that Pete, I know you'll have a lot of perspective on this. When people are talking about the industry, and I don't know you would know the stats. I think one of the biggest issues is the labor. And I think as the clubs are recovering, the personal training. And everything I've been involved in, it's very rare that when personal training revenue is down, it's almost always because you don't have enough trainers, and it's because a trainer left or whatever it may be. And with the recovery of the industry, that's a big issue. In terms of how do you get these trainers back? Do they get absorbed back into the economy? Do they figure out how to do whatever it may be? And I don't know that that's been sorted. I know some of the billing companies have there's some options for trainers, but I think that that's one of the keys. It's not only the videos, but it's like, hey, is there a way to incorporate, some of this virtual training so that when Pete Moore is training in your club and he goes on vacation for a couple of weeks to the Hamptons, it's like, hey, Pete, take your bands and let's kind of patch in at this time. And that way you're not losing production, and the trainers, they continue to maintain that. And I just think that that's an interesting topic I've been thinking about. And I haven't figured out what the solution is going to be.
Yeah. I mean, using your terms, from structurally, I think the clubs need to rethink how trainers get compensated. The best trainers that are, whether it's on the Soul Cycle or whether it's Barry's Boot Camp or on the Peloton, they're making 6-figure salaries, and they're earning it because they're bringing in the revenue. There was a guy who worked at Soul Cycle before he tailed off to Aiken's Army. I think he was generating something like $7 million a year for Soul Cycle. So should you pay that instructor 20% of revenue? Why not? If you're bringing in the revenue, I'm happy to share it with you and be generous about it. So I think clubs might have to reassess the value of a trainer, the revenue they're bringing in. And if that trainer wants to do workouts in the park or wants to have their own clients that are outside of the current club framework, I think they might be in a position where you have to accommodate those people. I mean, they're artists, they're celebrities, they're high intensity athletes, and they're going to want to have the freedom to do what they want to do. At the same time, they don't want to be doing training from their garage or from their apartment. So there's got to be a land-based component to training. I don't see face-to-face as going away in person. I think there's a lot of pent-up demand for people to have a enhanced level of socialization, almost to make up for a year of not having it. So I think it's actually a 2X. I couldn't get a parking spot the other day down on Manhattan Beach Boulevard. Look, everybody's out. They want to be kind of dust off their personalities and get back into socializing again. So I don't know if we came up with an answer here, but I do feel that the trainers need to be looked at differently. The clubs need to stop answering questions when I say, what is that trainer worth to you? And they say, well, I pay that person $35 a class. That's not the answer. The answer is, what is this person doing that generates a material amount of revenue and retention for my business? And I think the interesting part of TRX, to switch gears slightly, is me putting the TRX logo or banner either in front on a window, in the back of my club, in a section. I think it creates real additional brand equity to the club. And if you could help solve one of the problems right now, to your point, I was with a client the other day, owns 25 health clubs, and he said, I can't get people to join to work for me because they're getting $3,100 a month from the state of California. So I can't compete with that. It's supposed to be a safety net. Right now, it's just like like a sofa bed. So that's one of the things that hopefully goes away at some point, and people realize that we're not running, a socialist society here, and everyone should just kind of wake up whenever they want and report to work if they feel like it. So that's my conservative fiscal hat on. However, I feel like TRX might be in a position to say, hey, look, you don't have trainers? I got trainers. I'll drop ship them into your club. They'll be more than happy to come in here. Do you have the latest TRX equipment? All right, I'll get them there, but you got to have the best stuff. And I'll basically you can outsource some of your personal training, group exercise to me. And I'll do it through the web, and I'll actually give you the personnel that you can't find on your own, because maybe somebody doesn't want to, work at Pete's Fitness, but they'll work for TRX because I'm independent. And if you want to have me work at Pete's Fitness a couple of days a week, I'm cool with that. I'm not the trainer at Pete's Fitness, or I'm not a trainer at, I don't know, Snap, right? I'm a TRX guy. So it's almost like I keep my leopard stripes of being who I want to be, as like, I want to be affiliated with TRX and I want to work in other places. I don't necessarily want to go into a club. So maybe that equates to TRX becomes almost like an outsourced personal training staffing company. Maybe that's how things potentially evolve.
Wow, that's some big thinking there around how this all evolves. I think that's so interesting. And put TRX to the side. Over the evolution of the industry, there were outsourced personal training companies. For a period of time. I think you and we spent some time, on that over the years. And it's just, so one of my partners and one of the senior members of the team at TRX is a guy named Nassari Mejia, he's amazing. I don't know if you know Nassari or not, but he grew up in, the 24-hour fitness, within 24-hour fitness. And then he, I met him through NEV. He ran training at Crunch, and then he was involved really all over the world. And so he, he oversees and directs a number, the areas of our business, including our education, much of the operation. And we've been spending a lot of time talking about this, because it's just disruptive, and no one knows with this labor force, what's going to happen. And a couple of things about virtual, it's lonely, right? Like trainers, I don't think that works long-term, that these trainers are going to work in their home. You have internet issues, you have, roommates, you have, just being alone, all this. So there's some kind of, there's a lot to what you just said. It just has to be sorted out. And I think that, again, the clubs are the power base, and it's how is this going to work for the clubs going forward? In different parts of the world, personal training works differently. For instance, in Australia, the standard is they have a rental model. That's the way it works, is that the trainers pay, most clubs trainers pay rent. So I think this is there's a lot that's going to be, that's going to happen here over time. And, I think that will present a lot of, kind of interesting opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, the trainers and the instructors definitely have more power than they used to, and can sustain some semblance of their lifestyle they want by just operating on their own. However, if you look at most sole practitioners in every industry, they gravitate towards being part of a service organization. They gravitate towards being part of a brand that's a franchisor. Even personal trainers that want to start their own location, they'll go pay $3,600 for the CrossFit license because they don't want it to say, Gannelin's Kettlebell, training center, right? They want some connectivity one from a branding standpoint, but I think at the end of the day, most people are getting somebody else's brand because it gives them a sense of security that they're really not in it alone, even though they know they are in it alone. It gives them at least a little bit of a springboard.
Yeah, I think that's right. And the other thing is that a trainer wants to train, right? And one of the issues with a lot that it really happened over COVID, it's okay, I got to figure out how to set up a Stripe account and how to, get my Zoom link and then get this calendar that doesn't link in, and then my internet's, so part of the I think one of the opportunities is really to aggregate everything and make it like super easy. So it's like, hey, what are you here to do? I'm here to train, and I have the tool that's going to enable me to train. I'm not here to be, the IT department of, my apartment building or whatever it may be, to figure out how all this stuff snaps together. There's definitely all that stuff's it's going to happen. Even in the clubs, that's that's so important, is that you just make it simple so that they can, that they can perform their craft.
Yeah. I was with a guy last night for a drink who owns clubs up in Oregon. And he said, we don't do one-on-one personal training. It can only be allowed to be group. And all of his personal trainers are full-time employees, because if they're not full-time employees, I can't keep them. And if I don't do group training, I can't generate enough revenue per hour to keep them. So he's backed into his business model by trying to accommodate what it takes to retain an employee, instead of saying, hey, this is what a 10-pack's worth, and then let me figure out how to service it. So he kind of backed into almost what you were talking about before. What does the person on the front line need from me? And he viewed himself at the bottom of that inverted period, saying, what do I need to do to keep you here? 1, I want benefits. 2, I want to get paid every hour. 3, I want to have enough activity going on where I'm busy. And then you got me, right? So he backed into that by understanding the needs of his potential or current employee, instead of coming up with some wild ass strategy on, 5 group sessions at the same time, and you could use them in different rooms, but you're not allowed to go in this room without 3 other people. It's like, all right, what do I need to do to retain my personal training staff? And then we'll take it from there.
I think that's so smart. And, trainers, what your client or, friend is doing, it's exactly that. It's enabling them to do what they're great at, what they want to do, which is train. Because the other part is they don't want to sell. Like a lot of trainers, they don't want to do that. They're not, that's an issue. And, they might be a great trainer, but they're just uncomfortable, whatever it may be. And I'd imagine that he's figured out a, way to position them. And I'm sure that I would bet that his productivity is much greater, than it probably was before he did that. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And the other takeaway I've had recently is there's a very, very high margin that you can make on the digital, but you're not going to retain that unless you have a personal relationship that's inside the club. So I think what people should do, and this is the first time I've been telling people something that might take away some of their money optically at first, but everybody says I got a 50% personal training margin on all my revenue that comes in from personal training. What if you said, you know what? I'm only going to take 35%. That's the maximum I will take, or 30%, just like Uber or Lyft. I'm basically providing as much revenue as I can to the person that is providing the service. And I am basically your back office. And what the clubs have the ability to do is I'll make that up on the digital membership that's got a 92%, contribution margin for that. So I think people might actually need to recalibrate how much they're willing to pay a trainer or instructor in order to retain them. And also to say, you know what, if I'm selling a product that is a person that has a labor component to it, should I really make 50% on that? Doesn't that sound high anyway?
Yeah. I mean, so in fitness, the key is to make the experience inelastic, just so that member needs it. And back, I don't know if you remember this, but in the early days of Crunch, I learned that probably the 3 most important words are "you look great." I remember that we acquired Crunch, and we had someone checking. This is back in 2005 or some around there, and we were to get it to buy a membership at Crunch, you had to get we had a fat caliper, and you had to get and that was the best way to prevent people from ever coming back again. So I think part of this, like the reason for telling the story, is you want everybody to create that. And it's about the more that the trainer can focus on, or the Group X instructor can focus on creating that like amazing experience where, the consumer is getting a great result. Like fitness fundamentally is, people don't like to work out. It's like counter to human behavior, but where they like it, where they feel like they got a good workout, they accomplish something, and they get some kind of affirmation. That's the key. And all this other, regardless of, I think that regardless of if it's in your garage or it's in a gym or it's in whatever, it all comes down to the same kind of foundational elements. And, I don't know if this is off topic from what the point you're making, but I think that's the key to how this all works. And I think it's just the manifestation of that.
I haven't actually brought this up yet on any of the podcasts, but if you said to me, okay, a year ago today, I would like everyone to gain on average 24 pounds. So when I am allowed to sell them a membership, I know that they want to lose weight because they had that 24 pounds off and they've aggregated that at 2 pounds a month over the pandemic. If that's not a reason to say, hey, I can actually show you results, where some clubs are on a self-serve model, and God bless them because they brought in Planet and some of these other low-cost operators have gotten 16, 17 million people off the couch. But once you've gotten into that and you're not intimidated by going into a club, well, that's great. I could actually guarantee you will lose 24 pounds. That's a given. And to your point, the price of that 24 pounds to the average person is worth thousands of dollars. Yet we're charging them a couple $100 and there's no initiation fee and your first month's free. Like, we got to get rid of all that nonsense, because anytime you want anything else in life, you have to pay for it.
Yeah, and it goes back to this whole inelasticity. Like, once you and that's why I don't remember the exact stat, but the lifetime value of a health club member that does either personal training or takes classes is significantly greater than someone that doesn't. And if it's because of that. It's because you're delivering that result. And look, the other thing that I've been thinking about a lot is the convergence of or nutrition, right? Like you can't out-train your fork. It's impossible. It doesn't work, right? And I think that more and more everybody that gained 24 pounds, it's pretty simple. It's like, well, you multiply that by how many calories, in a pound, and then, it's math, right? And I think that more and more there's going to be convergence. We had a business at AV called Dot Fit, which was just a fantastic guy, Neil Spruce. And that was basically selling that program and supplements through trainers. And that's such an important part of this. And it's also the education of the deliverers, which are the trainers. And it's really like, hey, I'm a certified personal trainer. I think that over time there should be a nutritional component, because what I found, 100% of the consumer thinks that their trainer knows a lot about nutrition, and the number of trainers that probably know, it's probably less than 20%. It's just, it's a gap. And that's one of the things that creates a result, and it creates that you look great. Yeah, I know you worked out for an hour, but you're eating right because you know what you're doing, or you're, whatever it may be.
Yeah. So in closing here, you got any good business quotes or personal quotes for us?
Yeah, my best business quote is such a simple one. And I think you remember, one of my business partners at Angelo Gordon, a guy that we did a supermarket deal with named Jim Demi, he was amazing. He unfortunately has passed away a few years ago. He used to say two simple things. He used to say, great plans get great results. That's as simple as it is. And he also used to say, figure out what's good before you determine it's bad. And going back to the beginning of this conversation, I think that, as I've learned over time, that's the key, is when you go into a situation, my instinct years ago was just, a little scorched earth. And it's like, hey, let's figure out what's good, because that surprises you to the positive, and negative. And another thing that I've adopted, with some of our team, over the past year or so is whatever comes into your head needs to come out of your mouth, meaning that there's no, you got to speak your mind, and you got to, with our business, because there's, the only bad question is one that doesn't get asked. So, you asked me for one and I gave you three.
No, I love it. That's great. That's great. All right, man. I look forward to seeing you in person down in Newport, as well as I'm assuming we'll see you down in Dallas for the URSA event and join the TRX live training. Will you be there?
Absolutely. And thank you both for having me. I was excited to finally get the invite, and it's been a lot of fun. Thank you for.
Well, just for everyone's background, there was a podcast done a couple of years ago, but it was not rated for the airwaves. So to be the archives under a hidden link for those chosen ones.
So we for 5 years, what were we neighbors for 5 years at 22 West 52nd or West 15th Street in Manhattan. Yeah. And I think the confidentiality agreement that we have, we were both much younger then. That's a evergreen confidentiality agreement.
Stays in place.
Stays in place forever.
So if you ever live next to me, anyone on this podcast, and you have a balcony and there's a wall between it, don't think I cannot scale it, because I'll get there.
I can validate that. I can vouch.
Thanks for your
Thank you so much.
Thanks for your socks and your Wi-Fi, and for your contributions to the industry on a serious note. Good to see you, brother.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Brent.
I want to thank my friends at Burn, BRRRN, for sponsoring this podcast. They are the innovative company behind the world-renowned Burn board. Many of you don't know, I was one of the top roller hockey players in all of Nassau County back in 1988 to 1990. If I had a Burn board, watch out, I would probably be an NHL legend. Got a 7-day free trial on their on-demand library of hundreds of workouts. $30 off the purchase. Check it out at shop.theburn.com. We'll have it in the show notes. Use the checkout code HALO and go burn it on the Burn board. Ice hockey in your living room, at-home fitness, low cost, low tech, low impact. Go Halo, burn it up.